Men of Reddit, what creepy things have women done to you? One of my buddies had sex with a girl in college. About an hour after they had sex, she killed herself in his apartment while he was asleep. Cut her wrists in his bathtub. He said he got up to pee in the middle of the night and thought she left. Had no clue she was sitting in the tub, maybe 3 feet away from him while he pissed. He didn't know her well, but it really fucked with him for a very long time. Edit. Holy crap. Thanks for the gold. Thanks for all of the comments and karma. Thanks to that girl for offing herself so I could get all this internet attention. In the 5th grade, we were starting the family life lessons, which is basically sex ed. One of the girls in my class pointed at me and said that I would impregnate her. Had a disagreement over buying her some new outfit dress thing, with the supposed victory going to me with "we don't have the money right now and we'll see next paycheck" compromise. About an hour later, while I was cooking dinner, she came up and apologized, then came in for a hug, which started nice and somewhat affectionate but ended with her pulling her arms away very quickly across my back. This was to have the 2 razor blades she had sliced 2 deep slashes across my back. She ran away and locked herself in the bathroom. I called 911 and got stitches and all the medical things. Had insurance, thankfully. Obviously the relationship ended then and there. Looking back like 15 years later, it is really strange, as we were together for about 3 years and didn't have any major fights or physical altercations before that happened. It was so trivial with some massive escalation, but in the end it taught me that yes, I can cut someone out of my life. Figuratively, woo puns. Just started dating. Showed her a pic of my son. She then asked what I was going to do with him once we had kids. I was super drunk, passed out on my friend's couch. His friend was there also. I woke up to find her straddling me and pouring whiskey down my throat. It was super not needed. I was destroyed. Apparently she had sex with me that night. Can't say I consented as I wasn't conscious. Girl I dated made a voodoo doll out of her used tampon and my hair shavings from my electric razor that she said she'd use on me if we ever broke up. She buried it inside a lunchbox at the beach and drew a map to find it. She's now a married mother of 2. I was at the grocery store with my wife, then 2-year-old daughter, and twin then infant sons. My wife was pushing a double stroller with our daughter and one of the boys in it, and I was carrying the other, who was calmly cuddled up to my shoulder. We're in the produce section when some random middle-aged woman that I had never seen before spots us, makes a beeline towards me, stretches out her hands, and tries to take my kid out of my arms. She didn't look at my wife or me, didn't say a word to either of us. She just literally tried to grab my son from me with no prompting or invitation whatsoever. I stepped away from her and shielded my kid. My wife chased her off. That wasn't the only weird, creepy middle-aged older woman to come out of the woodwork when the twins were still babies, but she was the most frightening. Back in 1992, I was dating this girl from Chile. She really liked ABBA. Before we would have sex, she would make me sing the song "Take a Chance on Me" while dancing naked. If I refused to do it, there would be no sexy time. Being 18 years old and really only able to think about one thing, I would sing the song and dance the dance. I hate disco. After 3 or so dates, started talking like we were engaged. When are we going on vacation together? Should we get married in a church? How many would you like us to have? I called it off after that. So she threatened to tell the police I raped her. Luckily nothing ever came of that. A girl licked my knee at a club. I was at work when a customer came in. She was overweight and looked pretty sloppy. Hair was a mess. Wearing pajamas, a mismatched pair of shoes. She came up to me and asked how she looked because she was about to start driving for Uber and wanted to know if she looked presentable. I just said sure and tried walking away, but she wouldn't let me leave. I don't know how we ended up here, but she started talking about how her skin can't handle most soaps and had to use some alternative to it. Can't remember what it was. She shoved her arm in my face telling me to smell it, to see that it didn't smell bad. I politely declined, but she did it again and made it clear she wasn't moving until I smelled her arm. I finally did, said it was fine, and walked away as fast as I could. Was definitely one of the most uncomfortable moments I've had with someone. When I was in medical school, a girl 3 years my junior started obsessing over me. Initially it was kinda mild in the "I have a crush on you" sense. She'd ask my friends about me and messaged me on SocMed from her friends' accounts. Chalked it up to being young. Then she started to mess with girls that I'm close to, including my sister, telling them that they don't deserve me and that I'm hers. Also started hanging out at my neighbor's place and refused to leave until they call me out for some stupid reason and whatnot. And she'd hang out in the neighborhood I live in and pretend that we've bumped into each other on accident. Oh, and I would occasionally post music I like on FB or Twitter, and she would post music of her own as a response because she's convinced that all those music I post is for her. Then in my final year she wrote this 80-page letter in which she professed her love and compared me to some messiah shit. Oh, and the best part, it's been a few years since then. A few months ago she started working where I am. The nightmare fucking continues. I had a 20-minute conversation with a woman at an airport bar. Pleasant enough conversation. We were both a little flirty and she was attractive and seemed nice. I left to catch my flight, and while I did sort of regret not getting her number, I didn't think much of it again. A couple of weeks later she showed up at my house banging on the door at 10 PM. She had Facebook stalked me, which is acceptable I guess, but because I don't use Facebook very often, I didn't see or reply to her messages. So, like any sane person would do, she figured out where I lived, got on an airplane and came to confront me about the situation. At that point I was already way over the whole thing, but she was basically stuck in my city for the next 3 days until her return flight, and she didn't have much money, so I kinda had to let her stay with me. It was pretty awkward, but it wasn't all terrible. I mean, she was a nice girl and pretty as a peach, but I was just too weirded out. If she had written me a letter or waited until I saw her messages, then we would probably be married right now. I couldn't get past the crazy stalker behavior though. I was a limo driver for a number of years. One time this very drunk girl climbed through the divider into the front seat. I was on a fairly busy stretch of highway with nowhere to immediately pull off. There was a lot going on the road, so I really couldn't do anything but try to reason with her. I was seriously afraid she would bump me or the wheel or do something that would cause an accident. After she worms her way up front, she starts rubbing my thigh and telling me that I should leave my girlfriend for her. All the while her friends in the back were egging her on and thinking it was funny as hell. I pushed her hand off my upper thigh cock region several times before I finally managed to get to an exit where I could stop. It took me threatening to cancel the trip for her to get in the back of the car. Not the only time something like this happened, but it was the only time a girl risked all of our lives to make it happen. Usually there's one reasonable person in the group to keep the crazies in check. She showed up at my apartment back in college. She knocked on the door and I didn't answer. It was late. I was tired, and I didn't invite her over. She kept knocking louder and louder. The police arrived and asked her to leave. She left and showed back up about 5 minutes later. She knocked some more and finally gave up. The next morning I found a human turd on my doormat. Searched my apartment, phone, camera, computer, and everything else I owned the first time I left her alone in my place because she wanted to know more about me. She ended up creating a version of my personality she interpreted through my things. Co-worker at a diner told me she was leaving her boyfriend for me, just out of the blue one day. Said it in front of the cooks, manager, and 2 customers. Barely knew her, had worked with her for 4 months on rotating shifts, minimal actual contact or dialogue between us. Didn't even know her last name. I was pretty rowdy at that time, but I was always quiet at work, and I kept to myself. Thought maybe she was screwing with me or her boyfriend was in earshot and she was trying to fuck with him. Got home that night and she was standing outside my apartment with a suitcase. No idea how she got my address. I told her to go home and she quit the diner the next day. It was super weird. I was dragged into the manager's office and interrogated twice. Tried to explain that I had no clue what was going on. About a week later, either her boyfriend or ex showed up with 2 of his friends in the parking lot and kicked the shit out of me as I was leaving work. To this day I'm still confused about the whole thing. Edit. Jesus Christ guys. This happened in Northeast Arkansas in 2006. The girl was white, brunette, pretty I guess. The guys that kicked my ass were Hispanic. I had not slept with her. I had barely even spoken to her. And when I did, it was to coordinate tables at work. By hot-blooded and honor culture, I don't mean that I just lashed out at everyone. Though I did tend to pick fights if myself or my friends were being disrespected. I mostly mean that I never backed down or attempted to resolve anything with words if someone challenged me. I lost every fight I was ever in. I was living on the fringe at that point. I did drugs. Hell, I lived with a drug dealer for a year. I was a piece of shit back then, basically, but I never hurt anyone but myself. My warrants all stemmed from 2 unpaid parking tickets that stacked up with FTAs. Failure to pay fines. Failure to complete community service. 15 warrants in all at one point. Nothing violent. Nothing drug related. I'm not crazy. I was never a part of any fight club. Edit. I'm not insanely attractive. I'm pretty average. Yeah, I don't get it either. Ex-girlfriend cheated on me with an abusive ex-boyfriend from a few years ago in high school. Found out and living an hour away. I planned to break up that weekend when I saw her again. Confronted her and she went crazy and tried using a blender on my dick before it unplugged from the wall. Got her out of my apt and went to work. Came home that night to find she broke in my apt and stole my cat. Never did see the cat again, but she is now overweight. Baby to the ex-BF she cheated on me with. And the ex fled the state. Family kicked her out of the house. And I'm doing just fine in life now. Edit. For those asking why a blender. For whatever reason that was the first thing she had grabbed and I was about a foot away from her. Yes, she took off the top exposing the blades. I have not seen the cat since, sadly. Even worse, I guess I forgot to mention. The cat was only 3 months old, tabby female cat named Nika. I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and my GF followed me and sat outside the door to wait for me and I didn't notice. Opening up my bathroom door to see a humanoid figure sitting in the dark by my feet at 3 in the morning scared the ever-living shit out of me. A girl grabbed my ass and fingered my butthole a little while I was in Mexico. I was just watching the Day of the Dead dancers and blammo finger in my butt. Turned around and saw a little Mexican woman slip through the crowd. My girlfriend was like, "Why'd you jump?" and I explained I just got a finger in my butt. My ex used to work in an office full of mostly women and they would constantly make comments and brush past him. Ask to see his abs or tell him how handsome he was. The Christmas party was a step too far and he quit because they were just constantly slapping his ass and so on. Some of them would even say what they'd do to him sexually, thinking it was funny. Not that it should matter, but they were all middle-aged and overweight. Edit. My last comment was added for 2 reasons. 1. To paint a picture of the scene for you, and 2. Because this is something both my ex and current fiance have observed in this particular type of person a lot. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe.